In the third year of my marriage to Dean Liu, I finally realized that he had married me only because of my father's dying wish. He didn't love me. The one he loved was his childhood sweetheart who had grown up with him. Because I married him, he couldn't receive the news in time when his sweetheart was in danger. On the night of her burial, Dean Liu got heavily drunk, his eyes filled with hatred. Cass Meng, if your father hadn't forced me to marry you by leveraging his past kindness, Nova wouldn't have died. Do you know what I was thinking when I married you? I was thinking, if you were to die too, maybe I wouldn't have to bear such a heavy responsibility anymore. He hated me, so every word pierced my heart, dragging me into the whirlpool of pain. Yet when I was truly critically ill and on the verge of death, he sold off his assets to treat me, urging me to hold on a little longer. He sat by the hospital bed with a pained expression and told me, Cass, I never really wanted you to die, I just didn't know what to do. On one side was the dying wish of a mentor who had shown him immense kindness, and on the other was the childhood sweetheart he had loved for years. No matter what choice he made, he was destined to betray one of them. I wearily closed my eyes, and in the last moment before my consciousness faded, I heard him begging me, if there's a next life, could you let me be with the one I love? A sharp pain pierced my heart. And when I opened my eyes again, I had somehow returned to the day Dean Liu said he would marry me. Cass, you must bear your sorrow. The person came over crying and hugged me, leaving me standing there in a daze. It wasn't until I saw the tombstone before me that I snapped back to reality. I had actually been reborn on the day of my father's burial. Looking at the photo on the tombstone, my eyes instantly welled up, and tears streamed down my cheeks. Seeing me cry, my senior sister, her own eyes reddened, couldn't hold back her tears either. She pulled out a tissue to wipe my face and said to me with a choked voice, Cass, you're Professor Meng's only daughter, you have to be strong, only when you live well can Professor Meng rest in peace. I nodded through my tears, wiped them away, and looked to the side, where I saw Dean Liu staring fixedly at the tombstone. He stood there in a suit, his face silent, surrounded by a cold stillness. Anyone who saw this scene would think he was utterly heartbroken. I was no exception. My father once supported Dean Liu during his most difficult times, funding his education and inviting him to our home for meals. Later, he went to great lengths for Dean Liu's future. Many senior students went to my dad to complain about his favoritism, and even professors who were close to my dad teased him, saying he treated Dean Liu like his own son. So I naturally assumed that Dean Liu was the most heartbroken after me, but after experiencing my past life, I realized that wasn't the case. Although Dean Liu looked sad at the moment, his expression was more filled with pain, struggle, and confusion. I know why he's like this. Because my father specifically called him into the room before passing away and entrusted me to him. My mother passed away from illness when I was very young, so I was raised by my father. When my father suddenly had an accident, I was the one he worried about the most. Seeing my father breathing more in than out, Dean Liu had no choice but to lower his head and agree. My father had shown him immense kindness, and his conscience wouldn't let him refuse, but as it turned out, agreeing didn't make him feel much better, because he didn't like me. He was in love with his childhood sweetheart who grew up with him. He studied so hard precisely to marry Qingmai with honor after completing his studies. He was about to return and propose to Qingmai when my father entrusted my future to him instead. This undoubtedly presented him with a dilemma. All these things were told to me by Dean Liu in his drunken state in my past life. Recalling the events of my past life, my heart still aches with pain. Dean Liu finally noticed my gaze. His eyes flickered with panic for a moment before he quickly suppressed the emotions in them and walked up to me. Perhaps thinking I was too helpless and lost, he remained silent for a while before seeming to make up his mind. Cass, don't be afraid, you still have me, marry me, and from now on, I'll take care of you. In my past life, when I heard these words that sounded no different from a confession, I thought Dean Liu also had feelings for me. At a time when my father had suddenly passed away and I was lost and helpless, the person I had secretly loved for so long said such words to me. It was hard for me to refuse. I desperately wanted to find someone to rely on, and Dean Liu was the only person I had known for years whom I could trust. At that moment, I threw myself into his arms in tears, telling him he was all I had left. Dean Liu silently patted my back without saying a word. Since we had just finished handling my father's affairs and couldn't hold a wedding, I only registered our marriage with Dean Liu. Dean Liu told me that in a couple of years, we would have a wedding ceremony to make up for it, but I didn't care about these things. I thought that as long as our little family could have steady happiness, it would be enough. But even this small wish, I didn't get. When Dean Liu subconsciously avoided my touch for the third time, I couldn't help but ask him, "Did you really marry me because you liked me?" Hearing this, Dean Liu panicked and hugged me. "Cass, don't overthink it. You know my family situation. I'm just not used to being too intimate with people." Although he explained it this way, a thorn was still buried deep in my heart. Because I always felt it wasn't that he was unaccustomed to contact, but rather that he subconsciously rejected me as a person. Later, when his childhood sweetheart unexpectedly perished in a fire, and Dean Liu emotionally lost control while driving back to his hometown, I finally understood who he truly loved. At that time, we had been married for less than 3 years. Although we weren't as clingy as other young couples in our daily lives, our days were relatively stable. Suddenly learning about such a thing, it would be a lie to say I wasn't heartbroken. But Dean Liu's childhood sweetheart had already passed away. I think we should look forward and not dwell too much on these things. On the night his childhood sweetheart was buried, Dean Liu got heavily drunk and stumbled home unsteadily. Suppressing the pain in my heart, I made him a sobering soup and comforted him, telling him not to be too sad, yet he shattered the bowl in my hands with a single swipe. The hot soup splashed onto the back of my hand, leaving countless red burns, and the floor was also a complete mess. I looked up at Dean Liu in disbelief, only to find he seemed like a completely different person. His eyes were filled with intense hatred as he stared at me, with none of his former gentleness remaining. "Cass Meng, if it weren't for your father forcing me to marry you by leveraging his past favors, Nova wouldn't have died. I will marry her, cherish her, and accompany her for a lifetime. Do you know what I was thinking when I married you back then? I was thinking, if you were to die too, maybe I wouldn't have to bear such a heavy responsibility anymore." He resented my father for entrusting me to him, and he hated me for marrying him, causing him to forever miss his childhood sweetheart. Even in my last moments before death, he begged me in agony, "If there's a next life, can you let me be with the one I love?" The face of Dean Liu, filled with pain at that time, overlaps with the resolute person before me now. I looked at him and finally shook my head slowly. "Senior, stop joking around. I'm all grown up now and can take care of myself." In the past, I would selfishly call him Brother Dean with a smile, but now a simple senior creates an instant distance between us. It feels extremely distant. Dean Liu was momentarily stunned, looking at me with surprise and confusion, as if he couldn't understand why I suddenly became so aloof and formal with him. "Cass, we've known each other for so many years, you don't need to be so polite with me. My teacher treated me with immense kindness. Now that is gone, it's my duty to take care of you in his place." I thought Dean Liu would secretly breathe a sigh of relief after my tactful refusal. Never expected him to say something like this. I feel a bit strange inside. This rejection came a bit too directly. "Senior, really, there's no need. My dad treats you well because he values talent and believes you deserve a bright future. You don't have to feel obligated to take care of me because of this. It's neither your responsibility nor duty." I did genuinely like Dean Liu before. He was ambitious, diligent, and hardworking. It's only natural that I would fall for someone so considerate. But that doesn't mean I should cling to him and force a relationship. I sighed inwardly, not to mention I knew his feelings weren't genuine at this moment. I can't agree even more. Upon hearing my words, Dean Liu's eyes didn't show the joy of being rid of trouble. Instead, he looked at me with a puzzled expression. "Cass, don't you like me?" After much deliberation, he finally asked, his tone rather awkward. After all, I never confessed my feelings to him. I quietly watched him, and sure enough, Dean Liu knew I had been secretly in love with him all along. No wonder he hated me so much in my past life and even accused my father of exploiting his gratitude. Before Dean Liu entered the ward, my father called me in first. He gave me the family property, his eyes glistening with tears as he urged me to learn to be strong in the future. When I left the hospital room at that time, I was crying uncontrollably, gasping for breath, through my blurred, tear-filled eyes. I could only see Dean Liu pushing the door open and entering the hospital room. As for his expression when he came out, I didn't get a clear look. Looking back now, he probably thought that I had said something to my dad back then, which led my father to entrust me to his care. Dean Liu was financially supported by my dad throughout his 4 years of university, and he often came to our house for meals. Even his current good job was arranged through my dad's connections. Our family treated him so well, but in his heart, all the kindness we showed him over the years had ulterior motives. It's all just to keep him tied down. Suddenly, I felt an unprecedented wave of nausea. When I looked at Dean Liu again, most of the pain in my heart had faded. I gazed at him with indifferent eyes, my tone growing even more distant. When I was young and naive, I did have feelings for you, senior brother, but that's all in the past now. Please don't overthink it, senior brother. Someone as outstanding as you must have no shortage of excellent women around you, so count me out. Although Dean Liu's thoughts about me and my dad did make me feel a bit uncomfortable, but there's really no need to explain too much to him. If given another chance, I'd make it clear and reject him earlier. In the future, he can marry his childhood sweetheart, and I'll live my new life. No more connections between us. Dean Liu probably didn't expect to be rejected by me like this. When he heard the phrase young and foolish, a slight frown creased his brow, and a trace of displeasure flickered unconsciously in his eyes. But then, thinking of his childhood sweetheart waiting for him back home, his expression quickly returned to normal. Seems I was overthinking things. Forget what I just said, Cass. If you ever need help in the future, don't hesitate to come to me. I'll definitely do my best to assist you. Dean Liu smiled easily, the pain and conflict deep in his eyes completely vanishing. Seeing his expression, I also felt a sense of relief in my heart. In my previous life, after Dean Liu's childhood sweetheart passed away, he was so furious that he never gave me a kind look again. You could tell how much he loved his childhood sweetheart back then. I thought it was strange when Dean Liu reacted unusually earlier. Now it seems I was overthinking it. Dean Liu deeply loves his childhood sweetheart. How could he be upset just because I rejected him? I definitely will, I replied casually and stopped paying attention to him. After everyone had left, I stepped forward and kowtowed 3 times to my father. I never really believed that my father would demand repayment for his kindness, because at that time, when Dean Liu was admitted to the university where my father worked from a small town, my father came back and told me about it. He said Dean Liu's father had passed away early, and his family was quite poor. It was his mother who worked tirelessly to raise him, even taking on multiple jobs to support his education. Just when Dean Liu finally made it to university, hoping for a brighter future, his mother fell seriously ill shortly after the semester began. Dean Liu had to spend time raising money for his mother's medical expenses, making it impossible for him to balance both the hospital and school responsibilities. My father, fearing he might impulsively drop out of school, consulted Dean Liu and then rallied everyone to donate money for him. Since this initiative was my father's idea, he contributed the most, 50,000 yuan. After covering Dean Liu's mother's hospitalization and medical expenses, my father, valuing his talent, also took on the responsibility of paying his tuition for all 4 years of university. At the time, he told me that as a teacher, he couldn't stand by and watch a promising student be driven to desperation. Such a person, even if they couldn't let go of me on their deathbed, would absolutely never use kindness as leverage. I sighed. Actually, even if Dean Liu agreed out of fear for his conscience, there were other solutions. He could have taken the initiative to tell me about it. It's not like I would have clung to him, yet he chose to keep his regrets to himself, saying nothing, leaving me unaware until the 3rd year of our marriage that his heart had long belonged to someone else. I've been holding on to a man whose heart belongs to someone else for nearly 3 years, foolishly thinking we were in love. This is utterly ridiculous. Gazing at my father's kind and smiling face on the tombstone, I said with reddened eyes, Dad, I know you entrusted me to Dean Liu with my best interests at heart, but he's already committed to someone else. He's truly not someone I can rely on. Don't worry, I'm strong, I can live well on my own. Dean Liu, who had left and returned, stood not far behind me. Hearing this, his expression turned shocked. He didn't expect me to have overheard his conversation with my father, nor did he expect that I could tell there was someone else in his heart. Dean Lu's emotions were complicated as he lifted his foot, wanting to step forward and comfort me, but suddenly, he stopped his movement. Seeing me speak so sorrowfully, he must have thought I still had feelings for him. If he came to comfort me, he might end up being entangled by me taking advantage of the situation. Thinking of the childhood sweetheart with a sunny smile waiting for him back home, Dean Lu ultimately turned and walked away. Before my father passed away, he did ask for his opinion on entrusting me to him, but he just asked, and I said it wasn't necessary. Dean Lu felt that he would help when he could in the future, but his heart and mind would definitely remain focused on the person he truly loved. I had no idea Dean Lu had just come back. After chattering in front of the tombstone for a while, I went back home. The house was empty, utterly silent. In my previous life, after my father passed away, the reason I didn't dare to go home alone was because I didn't want to face the emptiness of being the only one there. But in truth, if you don't want to be lonely, marriage isn't the only solution. I gave the house a thorough cleaning and properly arranged my father's portrait. Then, I went out to a pet store. After careful consideration, I bought a lively and adorable little golden retriever. I bought everything needed, a dog crate, dog toys, dog food, and all sorts of essentials. The little one is lively and clingy. I take it out for walks twice every day, and my mood keeps getting better. Cass, is this your new dog? Hearing the familiar voice, the smile on my face faded slightly. Looking up, Dean Lu, whom I hadn't seen for days, was standing not far ahead. A girl wearing a loose t-shirt and black pants was standing beside him. Hearing Dean Lu call out, the girl turned her head curiously. I had seen her photo in my past life, so I recognized her at a glance. Nova Yi, Dean Lu's childhood friend. I shifted my gaze away from her and gave Dean Lu a faint smile. Yes, I just bought it a couple of days ago. I had nothing to say to Dean Lu and was about to find an excuse to go home when Nova Yi suddenly walked up to me. Seeing you head this way, do you live around here too? Her expression was so enthusiastic that I felt a bit uncomfortable. Yes, my home is just in that building ahead. After replying, I suddenly realized I'd missed something. What do you mean by my home is here too? I looked at Dean Lu approaching this way, feeling a sense of foreboding. Nova Yi didn't notice anything amiss and said cheerfully, what a coincidence. The new home we bought is in the same building as yours. Since I see you know Dean, we can look out for each other once we're living so close. Dean Lu stopped in front of me, nodding in agreement with her words. Nova's right. Living this close means we can easily help each other out in the future. He appeared happy, but I felt irritated. I told him those things back then precisely so we could go our separate ways and not interact like before. I never expected that after Dean Lu got together with Nova Yi, not only did he not stay far away from me, but he even bought a new apartment in the same building where I live. Now we're bound to run into each other constantly. My smile gradually stiffened, and Dean Lu, who had been observing my expression, noticed it instantly. Fearing that I might be jealous and deliberately targeting his childhood friend, he immediately told me, Nova has a great personality and is very generous. Since you're alone now, if you run into any trouble, feel free to come to us. As I noticed the faint wariness in Dean Lu's eyes, I suddenly found him quite strange. He clearly knew my home was here, yet he still brought Chiang Mai to buy a house in this neighborhood. So why is he now putting on this act, as if he's afraid I'll bully Nova Yi? Feeling a pang of discomfort, I casually responded with a vague acknowledgement and made an excuse to take the golden retriever home. The apartment I live in now was specifically bought by my father when I was still in school, and I've been living here for 5 or 6 years. I have deep feelings for this house and definitely wouldn't move out just because of a Dean Lu, though I don't know what he was thinking when he bought the house here, but since he's already bought it, I can't just drive him away. I continue to walk my dog downstairs every day as usual. Dean Lu's purchased house was already furnished, and within a couple of days, he moved in with Nova Yi. They came to see me specifically on the day they moved in. Cass, Nova and I will be getting engaged soon. Here's the invitation. You must come to the celebration. Dean Lu held Nova Yi's hand with one hand and handed me the red invitation with the other. Nova Yi leaned happily against Dean Lu's shoulder, smiling as she spoke to me. That's right, Cass, you must come. I looked at Dean Lu standing at the door with a smile on his face but wariness and suspicion in his eyes, and I really found it strange. In my past life, After Dean Liu and I got together, he never mentioned his childhood sweetheart from his hometown, nor did he ever go back to see her. So in this life, I assumed that once Dean Liu returned to his hometown and reunited with his childhood sweetheart, he would no longer appear before me. But Dean Liu first moved here with Nova Yi, then came to invite me to their engagement party. He kept appearing before my eyes time and again, yet each time with a wary look, as if afraid I would target Nova Yi. I really couldn't understand it. Suppressing the discomfort in my heart, I forced a faint smile and spoke. I've been quite busy lately, so if the engagement banquet is happening in the coming days, I might not be able to make it. As I spoke, I reached out to take the invitation. Then I added another sentence. Let me take this moment to wish you both a lifetime of happiness and growing old together. Nova Yi smiled sheepishly. Thank you, and I wish you the same. To soon meet the right person and find your own happiness. Not sensing any malice from her, my smile became more genuine. I will. A normal person, about to get engaged to someone they've liked for years and hearing words of blessing, would surely be overjoyed. But Dean Liu wasn't. The smile he had when handing out the invitation had faded significantly, his brows slightly furrowed as if sensing something amiss. After a moment of silent contemplation, his gaze settled on me, his eyes filled with suspicion, as if trying to determine whether my words were genuine. I could clearly sense his gaze, and it only intensified my disgust towards him. But seeing Nova Yi, who was completely immersed in happiness and utterly unaware, I couldn't bring myself to say anything in front of her. After the two of them left, I felt a knot of frustration in my chest and decided to take the golden retriever out for a walk to clear my mind. When I returned and was about to take the elevator, I happened to see Dean Liu alone. He looked at me, remained silent for a moment, then suddenly said, "Lately, I've been feeling that the distance between us has grown much wider," without changing my expression. I picked up the toy the golden retriever had dropped and calmly replied, "After all, it's not like when we were in school. Everyone has graduated and moved on to their own new lives." Dean Liu stared intently at my expression, and when he saw not a trace of nostalgia on my face, an inexplicable anger welled up in his heart. Even with a new life, there's no harm in staying friends. His tone was unpleasant, and I couldn't hold back anymore. What kind of friends? The kind who secretly has a crush on you, discovers your engagement, and then takes it out on Nova Yi out of unrequited love, only to be scolded by you. I've been trying to figure out what Dean Liu has been thinking these past few days. It wasn't until just now, when Dean Liu expressed dissatisfaction with her distancing, saying that starting a new life shouldn't prevent us from remaining friends, that I finally understood. He wants both his childhood sweetheart whom he's liked for many years, and also feels that since we've known each other for so long, we should maintain this relationship going forward. But at the same time, he's worried that I might target Nova Yi because he's with her. I frowned in disgust, looking at him with an utterly unfamiliar gaze. Dean Liu, what do you take me for by doing this? And what about Nova Yi, who's about to be engaged to you? What does she mean to you? The Dean Liu from before was driven and hardworking, earning nothing but praise from my father whenever he was mentioned. I liked him for his excellence at the time. But now, looking at Dean Liu again, I only feel disgust, because I've realized that even the most outstanding people lose their appeal when their character is flawed. Dean Liu didn't expect me to say such things. His face turning pale and ugly, he frowned and said, "Cass Meng, after knowing each other for so long, is this how you see me? As such a despicable person?" I found it amusing. "If you're not, then why did you go through the trouble of bringing Nova Yi all the way here to buy a house near mine? If you're not, then why do you always watch me with such wary eyes, afraid that I might clash with Nova Yi? You still think I can't get over you and would target Nova Yi, don't you?" I didn't mention it the last few times because Nova Yi was present, and I didn't want to ruin her expectations. But Dean Liu keeps making these uncomfortable moves. It's really disgusting. Now that Nova Yi isn't here, I might as well say everything I've been wanting to say. Dean Liu's face darkened, and his tone grew serious. "I was just worried you might not be doing well on your own. I wanted to stay close so I could lend a hand when needed, to put our mentor at ease." Was that wrong? I was somewhat speechless. First of all, there's no need to buy a house this close just to help. I wouldn't be moved by such a gesture. Secondly, I'm an adult and doing perfectly fine on my own. It's actually your occasional wary looks that keep making me uncomfortable." As the elevator doors opened, I threw out 2 sentences before stepping out. "Not that many people are lining up to snatch you away. Since you're engaged to Novayi, you should be wholeheartedly devoted to her. If you can't do that, let the girl go sooner rather than later." Dean Lu's face darkened, and he didn't respond to me. But I didn't need his reply anyway. In my previous life, just before death, I had felt guilty toward Dean Lu, thinking that if not for me, he could have been with Novayi. But now, upon careful reflection, that guilt must have been sheer stupidity. My Meng family has helped him for so many years, and we truly have done him a great favor. But no one forced him to marry me at gunpoint, did they? If he was unwilling but still wanted to repay the favor, he could have simply returned the money my family spent in the past and turned the page, but he refused. The decision was his, and I was completely unaware of it. Yet the moment he regrets it, he blames all the mistakes on me, as if he himself bears no responsibility at all. In this lifetime as well, I let him be with the one he loves, instead of living peacefully with others. He deliberately moved here just to annoy me. In reality, he neither respects me nor loves Novayi as much as he claims. What he loves most is probably only himself. Dean Lu didn't go home. He came to Cass's doorstep and lingered for a long time without knocking. Yes, he admitted that Cass's past crush on him had indeed made him somewhat concerned, but his decision to move here specifically was genuinely well-intentioned. Cass is just a girl with no man in the family to rely on. Who knows when she might be taken advantage of? Uncle Meng had shown him immense kindness, so even if he didn't follow his advice to build a relationship with Cass, he couldn't just abandon her. Nova had always been generous and considerate by nature. Even if they got married in the future, she wouldn't be upset if Cass needed help. This was precisely why Dean Lu had decided to move here. He wanted to explain things properly to Cass, but after hesitating for a long time, he still couldn't muster the courage to knock on her door. Cass currently had a deep misunderstanding of him, and if he tried to explain, she probably wouldn't be willing to listen. Just as Dean Lu was lost in thought, his phone suddenly buzzed twice. Looking down, he saw a message from Nova, a photo of a meal, along with a question. "The food is ready. When are you coming back to eat?" Dean Lu instinctively frowned in irritation, but after some thought, he still went downstairs and headed back. Upon arriving home, Novayi immediately greeted him with a smile. "Welcome back. Go wash your hands and try the dishes I made today." Dean Lu responded indifferently, washed his hands, sat at the dining table, and took a bite. Novayi looked up and asked expectantly, "How does it taste?" Dean Lu was still thinking about how to appease Cass and replied perfunctorily, "Not bad." Novayi noticed his lack of interest, and a flicker of disappointment crossed her face, but she quickly smiled and continued talking. "These shrimp are fresh from the market. Though a bit pricey, the taste is truly unbeatable," she happily shared with Dean Lu, who, preoccupied with his thoughts, grew increasingly annoyed the more he listened. The old Nova would have beamed while sharing delicious food or fun activities with him, carefree and unrestrained. Now, like everyone else, she had taken to chattering about such mundane domestic trivialities. Dean Lu didn't want to listen to her nagging anymore. He glanced up at her oversized t-shirt, suppressing the slight disdain growing in his heart. "Nova, you're getting engaged soon. If you have free time, go buy some clothes and learn how to dress up. If you can't figure it out, you can ask Cass to teach you." Novayi's words were cut off, and she sensed a hint of disdain in Dean Lu's tone, which instantly made her feel wronged. Dean Lu finished speaking and lowered his head to look at his phone. When he saw a beautiful bracelet, his eyes instantly lit up, based on his understanding of Cass. She would definitely love this bracelet. If he used this bracelet to explain, it would surely work. He completely failed to notice the growing disappointment in Novayi's eyes as she looked at him from across the way. "Because I was so fed up with Dean Lu, I didn't even go downstairs the next day." "Cass, are you home?" I was a bit surprised when Novayi's voice sounded outside the door. I thought she had been brought over by Dean Lu again, so I checked the surveillance on my phone. Realizing she was alone, I finally stood up and opened the door. Novayi gave me an apologetic smile and handed me a box of washed strawberries. Someone usually so warm and outgoing now appeared unexpectedly awkward. "Cass, apart from you and Dean Lu, I don't know anyone else here. Could I come in and talk with you for a bit? I don't dislike her. I simply detest Dean Lu's attitude of wanting to have his cake and eat it too, since there wasn't anyone unpleasant following her, of course. She could come in. Sure, come on in and have a seat. Novi walked in with a smile. I poured her a glass of water and was just about to ask what she wanted to say when she started speaking on her own. Cass, I've decided not to marry Dean Lu. Her sudden statement left me completely stunned. After regaining my composure, I thought about Dean Lu's character and was about to laughingly support her decision, but the words stopped at my lips. I heard you two grew up together. And you've been waiting all this time for him to come back and marry you. Are you really sure about this decision? I'm certainly happy that Novi has this idea, but the two have known each other for so long. I always have to measure my words carefully. I don't want to speak up for her now, only for her to have a change of heart later. That would leave me in an awkward position with everyone. I have my concerns, and Novi can see them too, she smiled and said. Although we've shared many years of feelings, I've truly made up my mind to leave him. Back then, both our families were poor. We vowed to build a better life and be happily together. But people change. Dean Lu is no longer the struggling young man who could barely afford school. Sometimes I don't understand what he's saying. And he doesn't care to listen to what I have to say either. If things are already like this now, let alone after marriage, after Novi finished her rational analysis. I felt completely at ease when I saw the seriousness in her eyes. It's good that you understand. Someone like Dean Lu really isn't worth marrying. I was worried she might soften, but it turns out she sees things much more clearly than I do. Dean Lu, that scumbag who wants to have his cake and eat it too, is truly unworthy of any girl. Novi glanced at me, then smiled with eyes crinkling at the corners. Actually, I came because I was a bit worried that after I leave, you might be sweet-talked by him, because I suddenly realized that Dean Lu has feelings for you. Seeing your reaction now, I know he couldn't fool you. Hearing this, I couldn't help but smile and was about to say more when a sudden knock came at the door. Along with it came a voice that was both familiar and irritating. Cass, yesterday was just a misunderstanding. Can you give me a chance to explain? I turned my head to look at Novi, who was rolling her eyes toward the direction of the door. Noticing my gaze, she pointed toward the bedroom with her finger and whispered, asking if she could hide inside. After a brief moment of thought, I agreed. Since we both saw through Dean Lu's true nature, it wouldn't hurt to listen together to what he had to say. If Dean Lu says something too disgusting, you can expose him on the spot. After Novi hid, I went to open the door. The moment Dean Lu saw me, he opened the box in his hand and handed it over. This bracelet is something I saw online. I knew at first glance you'd like it. Try it on quickly. When I didn't even glance at the bracelet, just coldly asked him, "Why are you looking for me again?" I thought I made myself clear enough yesterday. Dean Lu noticed the rejection in my tone, and the smile on his face gradually faded. Finally, he spoke with helplessness and sorrow. Cass, I know you overheard my conversation with the professor at the hospital back then. I agreed at the time because I genuinely wanted to take care of you on his behalf, but as you know, my heart belongs to someone else. That person is Novi. We grew up together, and I even promised to marry her. So when you rejected me, I was truly relieved. But I did make a promise to the professor after all, and I can't just abandon you either. You can rest assured, Nova has a great personality. If you ever need any help in the future, you can always come to me. She definitely won't get angry. Dean Lu repeatedly assured, his expression earnest. I had known from his very first sentence that he had overheard what I said in the cemetery that day. I think this guy is really too funny. When I was crying alone, he didn't come over to comfort me with a single word. Yet now he brings it up to pretend he cares. I asked him with a half smile, Dean Lu, you don't actually think it's some grand achievement to find a balance between two women, do you? Dean Lu mocked, looked somewhat embarrassed. Cass, can you stop twisting my good intentions? Didn't I do all this for? You did all this just to satisfy your own selfish desires. Novi walked out of the bedroom, looking at him with disgust. Dean Lu looked at her in surprise, then turned to me, his face instantly turning pale. He spoke with such confidence in front of me, but the moment he saw Novi, he immediately became guilty. I sneered at him disdainfully. If I run into trouble, I can learn to solve it myself. Even if I do want a man's help in the future, it certainly doesn't have to be you. Someone who's already taken, Nova Yi quickly chimed in. No, I'm breaking up with him. He's single now, but without a partner. Someone like him isn't worthy of you. We exchanged words back and forth. Dean Lu's face darkening to the point where it seemed like water could drip from it. He glanced at me with an angry look, then shifted his gaze to Nova Yi the next second. Nova, even if you're angry, you can't act on impulse. Our engagement invitations have already been sent out, and many people know about it. Nova Yi wasn't having any of it. She let out a cold laugh and spoke. I don't care whether you sent an invitation or not. You're already looking down on me for not dressing up before we're even married, and you always think I'm easy to push around. If we really got married, I'd definitely regret it later. With that, Nova Yi took a few quick steps forward and shoved him out the door. Get out of the way, you scumbag. Seeing she was serious, Dean Lu's expression instantly turned panicked. He hurriedly chased after her to appease her, but Nova Yi slapped him across the face and then strode downstairs. I snorted with laughter, called the stunned Dean Lu an idiot who deserved it, and then slammed the door shut behind me. Before long, Nova Yi was seen dragging her suitcase out of the building. It seemed she had already packed her things long ago. My phone kept buzzing with message notifications. I opened it to take a look and found it was Dean Lu sending a barrage of messages. Without even reading them, I blocked him. Dean Lu is someone who values his pride immensely. After the scolding he received from me and Nova Yi, I thought he would never dare show his face in front of me again, but I still underestimated his shamelessness. When I pushed open the door early the next morning, I saw Dean Lu standing in the hallway, looking disheveled. I was startled and, upon realizing it was him, cursed him as a lunatic. Hearing this, a flash of hurt passed through Dean Lu's eyes. He took a step forward but stopped in his tracks under my wary gaze. He looked at me with pain and regret, his voice bitter. Cass, I know you've come back too, about what happened last time. I was wrong. I thought I was deeply in love with Nova Yi. But that wasn't the case. I actually really like you. Dean Lu's eyes were filled with regret, but it didn't seem like a rebirth. More like he had suddenly awakened memories from a past life. Cass, can you give me a chance to make it up to you properly, after waiting a long time without a response from me? Dean Lu carefully chose his words and asked cautiously. I snapped back to reality and looked at him with calm eyes. I was somewhat surprised that Dean Lu had regained memories from his past life. But that was all. No, Dean Lu, it was you who begged me to let you be with the one you love. I granted your wish and let go. What does your regret have to do with me now? Why should I give you another chance? Dean Lu's eyes flashed with panic, still trying to plead, but I had no intention of listening further. People like you are always full of regrets, never satisfied. There's absolutely no way I'm giving you another opportunity. You'd better give up on this idea. Don't harass me again in the future, or I'll expose you in the alumni group. Dean Lu cares most about what others think of him, and of course, he wouldn't want to ruin his reputation. He gave me one last glance, then left in a dejected and sorrowful manner. There was clearly little affection between us. Yet he pretended as if he couldn't live without me. How disgusting. Speechless, I went back inside. The next day, I heard Dean Lu had sold the house here. A strange text message suddenly popped up on my phone. Cass, I wish you good health and happiness in the future. Although I didn't recognize the number, I knew exactly who sent this message at first glance. I immediately deleted and blocked it, then grabbed the little golden retriever circling around my legs and gave it a firm rub. Dean Lu really has nothing better to do. Without him being a stumbling block and constantly causing me trouble in this life, of course my health won't have any issues. Life is definitely going to get happier and more joyful.